Good evening. It's 8 o'clock. The top headlines tonight. India will boycott the Beijing Olympic ceremonies after China claims that a Galwan hero is an Olympic torchbearer. India says it's regrettable that China is politicizing the Olympics. The Galwan truth. New reports claim that at least 38 Chinese soldiers died in Galwan clashes. The worst of India's third wave is now over, indicates the government, saying that the third wave peak is officially lower than the second wave. Surgeries can go ahead, says the government, that with this COVID variant, there is no higher mortality risk for surgeries. The Congress will announce its Punjab chief ministerial candidate on Sunday. Rahul Gandhi to announce the chief minister candidate at a rally in Ludhiana. Meanwhile, AAP's Kejriwal asks, why was Sunil Jakhar sidelined as the chief minister candidate? Is it because he's Hindu? The Tamil Nadu Governor returns a NEET exemption bill sent to him by the Tamil Nadu government. The bill exempts Tamil Nadu students from the national medical exam NEET. The bill was cleared unanimously by the State Assembly. Tamil Nadu MPs walk out from Parliament in protest. Hijab protests spread. A second college in Karnataka stops girls wearing the hijab. No hijab will be allowed in classrooms, say principals and the state government. Earlier in these colleges, the hijab and burqas were taken off outside the classroom, but these girls say that wearing hijab is our constitutional right. A steep fall in the markets today after a global fall. Also, service sector numbers are down this January. Our lead story tonight. India has said that there will be no diplomatic representation by India at the Beijing Winter Olympics opening or closing ceremonies. This after China said that one of the soldiers who fought in Galwan is one of their Olympic torchbearers. India regretted that China is politicizing the Olympics and said that our officials will not attend. Meanwhile, a new Australian media report says that the number of Chinese soldiers who died during the Galwan clashes last year could be 38.
This report in the Australian investigative newspaper The Klaxon makes the claim that 38 Chinese soldiers were washed away and killed during the Galwan clashes of 2020.
Many Chinese soldiers, you write, were killed while attempting to cross back over the fast-flowing Galwan River in the early stages of June 15th and 16th battle. What is this based on? Is this, because this is the critical bit, what is this based on? Is it based on conversations that you have had or stuff which you have seen which has been deleted from Chinese social media, first-hand accounts? What exactly?
Yeah, so it's first-hand accounts that's been deleted from Chinese social media. One count in particular involves a first-hand account of someone who attended a funeral of one of the people that died. Now, it's worth remembering that only one of the 4 soldiers that China has admitted died in the battle was drowned.
The report comes at a time when China's decision to make one of their Galwan officers a torchbearer at the Winter Olympics has met with this response from New Delhi.
I wish to inform that our chargé d'affaires of the Embassy of India in Beijing will not be attending the opening or the closing ceremony of the Beijing 22 Winter Olympics.
What's more, Doordarshan will not live telecast the opening and closing ceremonies of the Games. The CEO of Prasar Bharati tweeting, consequent to the announcement by the External Affairs Ministry, Doordarshan Sports will not telecast live the opening and closing ceremonies of the Winter Olympics being held in Beijing.
What remains clear is that several unanswered questions remain on just what happened in Galwan. If, for example, so many Chinese soldiers were washed away, did any of their bodies end up in areas held by the Indian Army from where they were retrieved? The Klaxon says they have a second story coming up in a few days. For now, though, at so many levels, the word Galwan remains a source of tension between India and China. Vishnu Shobh for NDTV.
The lead story tonight, well, the motion of thanks, the President's address continued with different political parties speaking, the BJP and the opposition. Amongst those trending today was that of Trinamool Congress MP Mahua Moitra, who claimed that his speech had been cut short.
75 साल में पहली बार इस देश ने अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट राइट्स पहली बार देखने हैं, जो बिहार और यूपी में हुआ। उससे मेरे ख्याल से हर एक को पीड़ा हुई होगी। Yesterday one of the honorable members rightly said, India is a union of states. So the entire issue of the IAS cadre rules, which this government now wants to revamp and bring about in such a way that the central government can pull out any IAS, IPS central government officer from the states and decide as and when they want that these officers must serve the central government. This is a very dangerous situation as far as the Indian federal polity is concerned. I believe all the states have together written about this, and I think the Honorable Prime Minister again must be mindful of this.
What is the kind of republic we want? What is the India that we want today? What is our idea of India that we are willing to stand up for, fight for, be abused for, get jailed for? Would Netaji have approved of a Hardwar Dharam Sansad that issues blood-curdling calls for Muslim genocide? The President's address refers to Khadi being a symbol of consciousness under the leadership of Bapu. But the unholy Dharam Sansad issue calls to kill Bapu all over again. You have already succeeded in glorifying Gandhi's assassins.
उन्होंने कहा कि कौन इंडिया तो क्या इंडिया तो अमीर तो गरीब। अब हम लोग ये कहना चाह रहे हैं इंडिया वर्सेस रिच इंडिया एंड पुअर इंडिया, इंडिया एंड भारत। अब हम लोगों को चिंता है, हम फिर डॉक्टर राजेंद्र प्रसाद के उस वक्तव्य को, अनेक राजनीतिक और आर्थिक विषयों पर मतभेद होगा और होना चाहिए, किंतु यदि भारत और उसके लोगों को हित की हमारी प्रधान प्रेरणा हो और हम इस बात को समझे, और इसे तो हमें समझना ही चाहिए, पता नहीं कुछ लोग नहीं समझना चाहते कि इस हित की प्राप्ति पारस्परिक सहयोग और प्रजातंत्र नीतियों से हो।
Moving to the other big headline, is India's third COVID wave peak now over? That's what the government seemed to indicate today, saying that the third wave peak was less than the second wave. Let's just look at the latest numbers. Well, the positivity rate is actually up in the last day. It's nearly 11%, but it's still much less than it was a week ago. So there are the numbers. The cases up 6.84%. Deaths are down by 41%. That's because Kerala's backlog is not there. The positivity rate is up slightly, just below 11%. The tests are down and the vaccinations are also down at over 52 lakhs. But here's what the government said on why the numbers are looking positive.
The Health Ministry today all but declared the peak of the third wave has passed and that it was lower than the second wave.
हम अगर देखें कि जहां हमारे यहाँ 21 जनवरी को एक हाईएस्ट नंबर ऑफ केसेस जो कि इस सर्च के समय पे नोट किया गया था, तब 3,47,000 केसेस आए थे। यह पिछली जो हमारी सर्च थी उसकी तुलना में, जो कि 4,14,000 केसेस की थी 7 मई के समय में पिछले वर्ष, उसके तुलना में कुछ कम है।
At its peak, the third wave saw 3.47 lakh cases on 21st January, less than the over 4 lakh cases in early May last year. Now, cases are declining and the positivity rate has fallen from a peak of almost 21% to 13%. Only 2 states are still showing an increase in cases and test positivity, Kerala and Mizoram. The number of districts with positivity rates of over 10% has come down sharply, by a third compared to a week ago. However, India's battle against COVID is far from over, with experts warning against new variants emerging, and the need to ensure that all eligible people are fully vaccinated. Dr. Reddy of the Apollo Hospitals Group responded to a Times of India report that 50 lakh vaccines may go waste by the end of this month, saying that the government should allow boosters for anyone willing, even if they're under 60 years of age. That's the current limit.
The worst of this wave has passed. That's what the government seems to be saying. But this good news is marred by the certainty that there are more variants to come, and we need to be prepared for that. With Azam Siddiqui, Meher Pandey for NDTV.
Well, another news, Team India hit badly by COVID, and Shikhar Dhawan has tweeted saying that he's recovering well. But of course, it's a big blow for India just a few days ahead of their one-day series against West Indies.
This is the hotel where both the Indian and West Indies team are staying in Ahmedabad. 7 members of the Indian contingent, including Shikhar Dhawan, Ruturaj Gaikwad and Shreyas Iyer, tested COVID positive after arriving in the city for the 3-match ODI series against the West Indies, which starts on 6th February. The affected players have been isolated in their rooms and are being handled by the BCCI medical team. Shikhar Dhawan took to Twitter to announce that he is doing well and thanked his well-wishers for their support. Earlier, Mayank Agarwal had shared a video of the gym and written continuity and faith in the process. Now his prayers have been answered. He has now been added to the India's ODI squad. West Indies players arrived on 2nd February after their stunning series win over England back home and are currently isolating on a different floor. Both India and West Indies have to serve a minimum of 3 days in quarantine in their hotel rooms before training. Perhaps this is the new normal. Despite players testing positive, tournaments carry on around the world. Team India are set to play 3 ODIs at the Narendra Modi Stadium, Ahmedabad from February 6th, followed by the T20 International Series at the Eden Gardens, Kolkata from February 16th. The ODI series will be played behind closed doors.
Well, in other news, the Indian equity benchmarks plunged sharply in late deals, pausing a 3-day winning run, including after the budget because of weak global cues. Experts say concerns over government borrowing in the budget, however, could also be one reason. The Sensex down over 770 points, dragged by IT and realty stocks. The Nifty ended around the day's low to close at 17,560. Also, bad news coming from India's service sector, where the growth was at a 6-month low. The Market Services Purchasing Managers Index says that the January PMI has slid to 51.5 versus 55.5 in December. This is the slowest rate of expansion in the current 6-month sequence of growth. Service sector growth has also been dampened, according to the report, by the new wave of COVID, and that business confidence has slipped to a 6-month low. Inflationary pressures have also intensified in January. Well, let's go across to all the election action coming to you from the 5 election states. And the big focus, of course, is Uttar Pradesh with 400 seats. And with the first phase just a few days away, all the action is focused in West UP.
हमने हमारी पूरी तैयारी हो गई थी जेवर एयरपोर्ट बनाने का भी, एविएशन हब का भी, और ये बलिया तक 8 लेन की जो गंगा एक्सप्रेस वे वो भी सब पूरी तैयारी हो गई थी। पूरा प्रारूप तैयार हो गया था, लेकिन इनकी पूरी तैयारी के बावजूद भी उस समय केंद्र में कांग्रेस पार्टी पावर में थी। हमने उधर फाइल भेजी, लेकिन कांग्रेस ने उसमें अड़ंगा लगाकर तो इन कामों को नहीं होने दिया। हमारी पार्टी जब सत्ता से बाहर हो गई, उसके बाद सपा पावर में आई, बीजेपी पावर में आई। 1 दशक बाद इन महत्वाकांक्षी योजनाओं का शिलान्यास हुआ है, केवल शिलान्यास हुआ है, जबकि विकास के ऐसे कामों को समय से शुरू होकर अब तक पूरा भी हो जाना चाहिए था।
बहन जी, जरा उत्तर प्रदेश की जनता को बताइए, आपके समय में विकास के काम क्यों नहीं होते? अखिलेश बाबू, पूरा उत्तर प्रदेश आज भी नहीं भूला है किस प्रकार से निर्दोष कार सेवकों पर गोली चलाकर उनके मृतदेहों को गोमती में डालने का काम आपकी सरकार ने किया था।
And today, AIM-IM leader Asaduddin Owaisi has claimed that shots were fired at his car when he's returning to Delhi after campaigning in Meerut. No one was injured, but his car tires were punctured, he said. The one person has been detained.
हमारी इलेक्शन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया से ये गुजारिश है कि इसकी इंडिपेंडेंट जांच करवाई जाए और ये कौन है लोग, किसका दिमाग है इसके पीछे, और आखिर क्यों ये हमला हुआ, किसने ये कॉन्स्पिरेसी की, ये जानना बेहद ज़रूरी है। आखिर ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है कि टोल गेट के ऊपर ये लोग 4-4 राउंड फायरिंग एक सिटिंग एमपी के ऊपर करते हैं। हम तो अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह कुछ नहीं हुआ, हमको खैरियत से हैं, मगर अल्लाह बचाना जब चाहता है तो कोई कुछ नहीं कर सकता।
Well, the Congress is to announce its Punjab chief ministerial candidate on this Sunday, on the 6th of February. Rahul Gandhi will be at a Ludhiana rally where the name will be announced. Recent pictures there of the current chief minister Channi and Navjot Singh Sidhu hugging on stage. But Navjot Singh Sidhu, of course, currently is in Vaishno Devi, apparently, well, perhaps praying to be announced there. So he's there in the midst of campaigning for Punjab. Meanwhile, the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has asked why is it that Sunil Jakhar's name is not included in the Congress Delhi poll, considering that Sunil Jakhar has just said that he actually had the highest number of MLAs supporting him after Amrinder Singh was removed. Well, the other big political story, the Tamil Nadu Governor has returned the NEET exemption bill. This was a bill unanimously cleared by the State Assembly, which basically exempts Tamil Nadu students from giving the Central Medical Entrance Exam, NEET. Let's go across to Sam for more. Now, Sam, this is a deeply emotional issue in Tamil Nadu. It's an issue where all political parties agree. We saw walkouts in Parliament as well. What is the reasoning on which the Governor has returned the bill?
Well, the Governor has given two reasons, Sonia, saying that after going through the bill and the expert committee's report on the basis of which the bill was framed, he says this will affect the interests of rural as well as poor students in Tamil Nadu. He says he also studied or examined the social justice before and after the introduction of NEET and has asked the Tamil Nadu Assembly or the government to reconsider. The only option left for the government is to resend that to the Governor, after which legal experts say the government ought to forward that to the President. At the moment, the Tamil Nadu government has called for an all-party meeting on the 5th and has said the government should not have done this. Of course, all the political parties except the BJP do not want NEET, saying it favors the affluent classes who can afford private coaching, and this puts the poor and rural students at a very big disadvantage despite scoring very high marks. Around 20 NEET aspirants or medical aspirants have died by suicide, unable to crack NEET over the last few years.
Yes.
And the Governor has also cited a Supreme Court judgment in the case of the Christian Medical College, Vellore, but the ruling DMK says that order does not say anything about the rights of the legislature to legislate anything in this
point
regard.
as well,
so
on
we'll have to
whether,
watch how this works out.
Yes, on between the centre's powers on whether the State Assembly can actually reject a bill which is a law which is actually passed by the centre. Thanks so much, Sam, for that update. We'll come back to you. And meanwhile, in Karnataka, protests continue, and this time a second college where young students have said that they want the right to wear a hijab or head covering, but principals backed by the state government have said there is no question of the hijab being allowed in the classroom. Earlier, the hijab, the head covering and burqas worn by Muslim women students were taken off outside class, but now the girls are saying that wearing hijab is a constitutional right.
Hijab protests now in a second college in Karnataka's Udupi district. Around 20 students of a government college in Kundapur, a coastal town, were stopped at the gates by the principal. These students waited for over 6 hours outside the gate, firm on their stand that they should be allowed to attend classes wearing a hijab. Not just the college administration, but the district in charge minister and home minister said that the students should follow the uniform dress code. Not one, but 3 ministers have weighed in against the students, even calling it a nuisance.
ಜಿಲ್ಲಾಡಳಿತದ ನಾನು ಚರ್ಚೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತೇನೆ. ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಒಂದು ನಾನು ಮಾಧ್ಯಮದ ಮೂಲಕ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡುವಂಥದ್ದು ಒಂದೊಂದು ಶಾಲೆಗೆ ಒಂದೊಂದು ರೀತಿಯ ನಿಯಮವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಅಕಸ್ಮಾತ್ ಆ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಏನು ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಕೈಗೊಳ್ಳಬೇಕು ಅದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆನೂ ಕೂಡ ಖಂಡಿತವಾಗಿ ಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಕೈಗೊಳ್ಳುವಂಥ ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ. ಆದರೆ ನಾನು ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕವಾಗಿ ಮತ್ತು ಎಲ್ಲ ಶಾಲೆಯ ಮುಖ್ಯಸ್ಥರಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ವಿನಂತಿಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದು ಈ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದು ಯಾವತ್ತೂ ಕೂಡ ಸರಿಯಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಾಲಕ್ಕೆ ಒಬ್ಬೊಬ್ಬರು ಒಂದೊಂದು ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋದರೆ ಒಂದು ನಿಯಮವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಲೇಬೇಕಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ತಜ್ಞರ ಸಮಿತಿ ಇದೆ.
ಬಿಡದೆ ಹೋದರೆ ಒಂದು ವಿಶಾಲ ಮನೋಭಾವನೆಯಿಂದ ತೋರಿಸದೆ ಹೋದರೆ ತುಂಬ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ನಮ್ಮ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಸಚಿವರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಯಾವುದು ಆ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ ನಿರ್ಧರಿಸುತ್ತೋ ಆ ಯೂನಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೂ ಕಡ್ಡಾಯ. ಅದು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವುದೋ ಬಣ್ಣ ವೇಷ ಇಲ್ಲ.
Definitely this becomes a nuisance even in other colleges. Clearly government took a stand that whatever the SDMC has followed and the students and parents who had accepted whatever the condition led by SDMC has to be followed till we get the report of the committee. This problem has started only from last 20 days. They were not wearing.
This is the third such incident that is being reported from the state, the other one being in Shivamoga district. In the first incident, 8 students were not allowed to attend classes for more than a month. With Shrija in Bengaluru, Bureau Report, NDTV.